Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Karen Ryle, and I'm on the faculty here at Penn. I teach creative writing through the English department. And welcome to the Applebaum Editors and Publishing series. This series is tied in with a class I'm teaching, which is a section of English 115 Advanced Fiction Writing. What we're doing is we're bringing in an editor or editors from 4 different literary magazines throughout the semester. A few weeks ago, we had a visit from Apiary, which is a local Philadelphia magazine, as is Painted Bride Quarterly. Apiary is a brand new magazine, just 2 years old. PBQ is pretty old. It's I think it began in 1973. So we're having, for our students and for the series, the contrast between 4 different types of magazines. In a few weeks, we're going to be bringing in One Story, which is a magazine from Brooklyn that publishes just one story every 3 weeks. And you get a tiny little sort of chapbook-sized story in the mail when you subscribe to them. And then on November 28th, we're bringing in a magazine called Electric Literature, which is also based in Brooklyn. And their magazine, which has very lavish, beautiful illustrations, is only in PDF format. So when you subscribe to it, you give them your credit card number on the internet, and then you download a PDF, and that's your magazine. So it's all 4 very, very different types of ways of publishing literary journals. So I would like to introduce today, in the middle here we have Kathleen Volk Miller, who is the co-editor of Painted Bride Quarterly and the co-director of the Drexel Publishing Group. She's also an associate teaching professor at Drexel. She's a weekly blogger on Thursdays, so watch your calendar for Philadelphia Magazine's Philly Post. She writes fiction, essays, and she has works in publications such as Opium, the smartset.org, the New York Times Motherlode, and Drunken Boat, to give an example of her publications. She's currently working on My Gratitude, a collection of essays. Recently, Kathleen Volk Miller was named a creative connector by Leadership Philadelphia. You can follow her on Twitter at KVM1303. Okay, I'd also like to introduce 2 of her student co-opers from Drexel University. We have, to my right, Frankie Santoni, and then to Kathy's right, we have Lindsay France. And we're really glad to have you guys here today. A little bit about the magazine. Painted Bride Quarterly was established in Philadelphia in 1973. It's one of the country's longest-running literary magazines. PBQ is a community-based, independent, nonprofit literary magazine published quarterly online, in print, and making it accessible to a broad and diverse audience. The hybrid online and in-print format allows for immediacy, accessibility, and permanence simultaneously. The book, meaning this book, the print book, allows us to transcend any legitimate questions of publications for authors while serving contributors with the timely and easily shared publication of their work online. PBQ does not limit itself to specific regions or genres. They publish poetry, fiction, and prose from emerging and established authors from across the country and around the world. The combination of PBQ's volunteer editorial board and ever-changing student staff makes its published voice unique. Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Just to start out, I'd like to introduce Kathy and ask you if you want to just tell us a little bit about the magazine. And pretty soon, I think we'll open our floor to questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
My relationship with the magazine is pretty important to me and my career. I came to it by accident when I was in grad school at Rutgers. I had went straight from undergrad to grad school and was the only person in my class, in my graduate class, who was 22 and didn't have an outside editorial project. And I went to Lisa Zeidner, a professor there, and said, help me, because the only thing the professor had in his back pocket for someone like me who didn't know what they were doing was a Civil War diary of a soldier. And I was just, as the joke goes, I was just so tired of the dead white men and really wanted to read something contemporary. So Lisa said, why don't you contact the folks at Boulevard, which will come back in my story, which was housed at Drexel at the time, and the folks at Painted Bride Quarterly, and see if either of them will let you read for them during this semester. So Boulevard, Richard Bergen at Boulevard never called me back, and PBQ did. And it was at that point being run by Lou Camp, Lou McKee, and Joanna DiPaolo, out of primarily Lou Camp's Queens Village apartment. And they were more than gracious and said they had decided that why weren't they making use of graduate students in regional schools, and also took on two students from kids, like we still are, right? Two people from Temple had honestly knocked on their door for the first time as well. So I started working with them, and when the semester was over, they asked me to stay, and I was honored to do so. And then as time kept moving on, I kept staying, and different people kept leaving until I became in charge. At one point, we housed it at Rutgers, in the same kind of relationship we have now at Drexel, which is that we're still our own 501c3, which anybody who knows that, the nonprofit code. We are our own entity, but we are housed there. And the win-win is that students get to have this real-world publishing experience. These two work full-time for me. Lindsay does desktop publishing, and Frankie's the editorial assistant. But other students work for us and get academic credit. But there's never traditional classroom experience. It's all in the office. So what I think is kind of awesome in the narrative of my relationship with PBQ is that I came to it as a student, worked for it for at least, I should do the math, but let's say a dozen years, and now have made it a vehicle for students. So I think that's kind of cool. It makes me very happy, you know. So we have a grown-up staff as well, and we have a staff in New York as well as Philadelphia.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to open the floor to questions, because part of the point of the series is to have people be able to talk to the editors and just find out more about what life is like on the other side of the editorial desk. I know that we have a few people here who have a little publishing experience. I saw, sorry, you're just taking a bite of pizza, but you have a new magazine that's out, right? Okay. So we have a mic, and it's not for amplification. It's just because Kelly Writers House likes to archive all these events. So my assistant, Pascal, will, when you raise your hand, she'll just pass it to you. So you can speak into the mic so that it'll be held, it'll be held for posterity. Okay, so do we have any questions? Everyone's eating.
How do you go about submitting articles, and do you allow email submission?
Yes, we do accept electronic submissions. This hopefully will be interesting. I was the one who was standing as the guardian at the gate saying no, 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 because I was afraid it would also be opening the floodgates of hell. And it has been in many ways. I'm not really, I am very old, and I'm not a fan of electronic submissions because I think it makes people too lazy. I think folks just go submit, and they've never looked at your magazine. And the amount of simultaneous submissions we get now is insane. The amount of sloppy authors we get is insane. And I mean that in every way, and not offensively. Nobody in here would commit these crimes. I know. But people will actually say, "Dear editors of Drunken Boat," because they don't even realize they haven't changed the cover letter. Or they're ignorant enough to have 14 CCs. They blatantly write us all. So, and I also, one of a fan favorite is when they submit something, and then about 6 weeks later they say, I'm still working on that. I'd like to withdraw that. And that happens after acceptance as well. We'll accept something and somebody will say, oh, I've revised it since the time I sent it to you. And, I guess I am very old school in all of those ways. Have some respect for your editors. Find out something about the magazine before you submit to them. And keep good records of who you're sending what to. And don't send work out until it's ready, for goodness sake. So anyway, yes, we accept electronic submissions.
Can you give us some idea of what the numbers are in terms of how your submissions have changed since they were postal submissions?
How many submissions do we get?
Electronic ones?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every day we have about like 5, 6, 7 different ones. And right now, I think I checked, and we have, I mean, over 1,000 right now, online submissions, way over that. Yeah, but every day we get like new submissions all the time, and yeah, that's kind of it. In terms of actual physical submissions, like the mail ones, I mean, we get those also every day. We have so many submissions. Wow, I just realized how much we have to go through every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot.
Well, I turn to Frankie like that because most of his job is handling, or a lot of his job is handling the submissions. We have a tracking system for the hard as well as the online, and you know, the online lets us do cool stuff like figure out what our acceptance rate is, like 1.2% of what gets submitted. But yes, there's been, I think your question was angling at, is there growth in submissions now that it's electronic? And I would say absolutely. I think you even underestimate with 5 or 6, because don't you think it's more like 200?
I think it's 5 or 6 every time I check the email.
Right.
Which is like once
Yeah.
every 30 minutes. So yeah,
I think it's
a lot. Yeah.
easily 300 a month.
So how do you handle that?
Well, we have a very big staff, and we have a dual city staff. So Frankie, again, how I don't handle it, he does. The emails come in, and he assigns them to our many, many readers. We have a grown-up staff of at least 5 or 6 permanent people, and then our student staff changes. In New York, there's 5 permanent staff, and then there are some students from NYU and Princeton that read for us. So it's actually like a long chart of names, and he just tracks. If Karen got the last one, then the next one goes to Lindsay, and it's just a round robin of submissions.
So your initial readers are undergraduates?
They can be. It's random, random. Our editorial policy is uber democratic. It's the thing I'm probably the most proud about PBQ. 3 readers must read every submission before it gets either brought to the editorial table or rejected. Those readers can be a brand new person. They can be somebody who's worked for the magazine for 20 years. It's a and usually
So
it's a combination.
every single one of those 10,000 submissions are read by 3 people?
Yes. And we strongly, it is the policy that I inherited. And yes, back when I inherited it, there were 20 submissions a week, but we have grown, and I just feel I really want to honor that. I think it really helps PBQ keep an eclectic voice. I would never want to be a magazine that people would say, oh, they publish that kind of stuff. I would never want to be supreme ruler either and say, you're in, you're not. And you would be shocked. I will not name names, but there are many magazines that you respect where all of the other people read, and even if 4 people, 6 people say yes, the supreme editor can still say no. Many magazines run that way, and I just don't agree with that. And I have published stuff I'm embarrassed by. You know, not very often, but sometimes stuff just is a little cringy. You know, I did vote no, but I was outvoted.
So it's a straight up and down vote, not a consensus?
We literally go 1, 2, 3, vote at the editorial table after discussion.
You do it by numbers?
Numbers. If it's tied, we do various things. We'll sometimes send it to New York and let them be our tiebreaker. We'll sometimes wait till the next editorial meeting and revisit the piece and see if it haunted anyone over the 2-week period, you know. But, I mean, this is a little story, but just recently, one of my staff, who was a grown-up staff member, said that she didn't have the time and this and that to be on staff anymore. But she also felt like everything she liked always got outvoted, and that there were a few yeses in her queue, you know, that she felt were going to get rejected at the table. And I got pretty personally offended by that, because I thought, gee, you know, I've been with this magazine half my life, and this person's going to tell me that they know how it's going to go at the table. I never know how it's going to go at the table. And the very next day, a student who had been reading for me for 2 weeks had said yes to a poem, and 2 staffers that have been the grown-up editorial staff for 7 years had said no. That poem got brought to the table, discussed, and accepted. and I love that. You know, I tell you that little story to illustrate for you why I am married to the concept of so many readers and discussion.
We talk about how eclectic the magazine is. Is there a conscious sort of joint editorial decision to kind of preserve that, or does it just sort of happen naturally through the course of discussion?
I think it's connected to the editorial process.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if our process was different, Marion Wren is my co-editor and runs the New York staff, and we both just feel as passionately as we do. I guess if, you know, when I die, someone might decide to change things. I don't know. The staff seems happy too, you know, with that system.
Great. Okay, can we take another question?
Yeah, I was curious if you would speak a little bit about what goes into your acceptance of submissions, if it's just the work alone, or if you sort of factor in the reputation of the author, or where they've been featured before, or whether, you know, how emerging or advanced they might be.
Mm-hmm.
Say if Mr. Philip Levine were to submit to you, would that make you more likely to accept it, less likely, or would you mostly just ignore it?
Do either one of you want to speak to that first? What have you seen?
At the meetings, I mean, we don't really even look at who submitted it at all. We just look at the piece when we go to the meetings. Like, I'm in charge of bringing a piece to the meeting, and then pretty much just a projector up, we put it up, and everybody just reads it, or somebody just reads it out loud for everybody else, and then we just discuss the piece itself. And just, you know, we go around the room, okay, what do you think? What do you think? What does everybody else think? But we never look at the name or the cover letter or anything like that. So.
Yeah, there are. I was hoping. Good answer. Good answer. I was hoping he would say the same thing. You know, a few of my staff members like to read the cover letter before they read the work. I don't. I tell my students not to as I train them, because I think the work should stand alone. You know, would I reject Molly Peacock? I haven't had to. You know, so you know. But if we're talking about, there are a lot of people who aren't Molly Peacock who have a list of 40 publications. I don't think you can start weighing that stuff. I think even Molly Peacock probably does write stuff that's not so great, even though she probably knows better than to send it out. But yeah.
I also kind of had a similar question in relation to the themed issues. How do those happen? Do you just get a bunch of submissions and then decide that there's a theme, or like post that there's a theme and then expect submissions to follow?
Yes and no. Yes and no. The first couple themes we decided to do because so much stuff was coming in that seemed thematic. But since then, we have committed to that now. Now it's part of our thing. And so we make 4 online issues, like Karen was saying. If you look at the little black tabs, that shows you we wanted to honor the, you know, when did we do this? We started this 8 years ago, this format. We wanted to honor the old numbers, you know, so the issues are still 83, 84, but then the volumes are 1, 2, 3, 4, and anyway, we now do 2 themed and 2 unthemed per print annual. So it's working out. I mean, you know, I think it's fun. I think we may have done it just to make it more interesting for us as well, or something. And I have to say that since we've been doing it, not that anybody copied us, so many magazines seem to be doing that. I don't know why that's like the movement. There's so many themed issues now. But yeah, it happened organically, but now we make it a thing.
For those of you who don't own this, this particular print volume has the punishment issue and the food issue. Which kind of, you can see a theme even emerging there.
Yeah. When we were making that, and people would say, "Do you have any upcoming themes?" And I would say, "Food and punishment." Right. Everybody would go, "Wow, cool." And I'd be like, "No, food." Maybe we'll do food and punishment sometime. I don't know.
Okay.
In consideration of how many submissions that you do receive, do you ever find that you like a piece but you feel that it needs edited? And if you do, what do you do in that situation? Do you contact the author or do you just let it go and choose something else?
It has to be very good for us to do edits. We rarely do edits. I don't think we edit one thing every 3 months maximum. You know, there are pieces that are groaners in that good way, like, oh, you know. And then if we only, so first of all, it has to be really, really impressive. And secondly, the edit has to be easy. Meaning a whole last stanza lopped off, a whole last paragraph lopped off, you know, something easy. If it's an amorphous thing throughout the work, we can't, because you will get in an online workshop. Any of you new magazine people, like, you will be workshopping with a person online for free if you don't do it that way.
So in other words, are you saying that, I just want to distinguish between editing and editing. There's the kind of editing that a nonfiction editor will do, which is just to take the finished manuscript and toy with it. And then there's the kind where a fiction editor might say, well, we would accept your piece, but you really need to work on X, Y, Z. So you're saying you don't do the latter, you do the former?
I don't do either of those. I mean, I wouldn't say XYZ. They wouldn't only get that far if it was only Z. And it was a very simple edit, not something throughout a piece,
Right.
but something like,
Do you send the writers-
this should have ended here.
Right.
You know, that.
Right, okay. Do you send the writers any feedback at all when you sit with rejection?
Also not frequently. Yeah, not very again, it's got to be something, with that volume, it's got to be something that stops us, you know, and really took so much time at the editorial table and then still doesn't make it.
Right.
You
So-
know,
so
then when
if
we're
something
we
comes to the
will.
table and does take time, are you more likely to just send a note to
Yes,
the person? Okay.
absolutely. Yes. Yeah, I mean, you know what, I will say that to any of you that are sending out, the longer it takes to get a response back, feel better. And if you get a handwritten note even on the form rejection slip, feel better. Because even people who don't accept the volume that we accept, just don't stop to put those little notes on there unless your work really did, you know, take heart from handwritten notes, even if they're on rejection slips, for sure.
So do you feel that the quality that you receive by snail mail is higher than what you receive through email?
Wow, that is super tricky. You know, a few years ago I would have said yes, but now I say no. It's just it's not ipso facto the logic of what I was saying earlier. I get crap both ways. And I get more crap online, but also just because I get more crap online. Good and bad. You know what I mean? More is coming in that way. So, yeah. You know, I mean, we really felt the pressure. I don't know if I was clear about this. We had to start accepting online submissions because we were getting less hard copy submissions. And bigger journals, everyone was doing it, Mom. You know, so we had to. We really felt like we had to.
Yeah, you mentioned you have an eclectic group of themes. Would you write on the theme, for instance, politics, like the 8 current Republican candidates who are speaking from Dartmouth to Vegas, and it's still not November yet. Would your magazine accept a political theme like that, for example, or is that out of the circle?
Well, we've never had a theme that was politics. I mean, right now we're gathering for displacement is one of our themes, and costume is the other. But we have not chosen our themes for Print Annual 7. I don't know if politics would ever be one.
Well, I think this is pretty dramatic. From Herman Cain and pizza, for example, to Mitchell Romney back 4 years ago, Rick Perry, the governor of Texas. They're really having at it with each other, almost politics. So I wondered if you would accept an article like that. Well, all right, I understand.
Yeah. Okay.
how do you come up with how did you decide on costumes, for example? Is it in a
I'm
group
trying to
process?
well, you know what? I very clearly remember the displacement idea, but
Well, tell us that then.
I'll tell you that. At AWP, we always have our booth next. AWP is Associated Writing Programs Conference, so it's a big conference, and but we always make sure that we have a booth next to American Poetry Review, because they're our Philly friends, and this way we can watch each other's booths. And one day there was a woman in their booth who they had published who was talking about living in Montana and feeling very vulnerable in Montana because it was just so open and bare and mountainless and disorienting in its flatness. And so she missed Philadelphia and felt like she could be scooped up at any moment off this plane, you know? I came here from Pittsburgh. I don't know how many people are familiar with Western Pennsylvania, but this area made me feel almost that leveled out. It was sunny every day. I thought I was in California. I didn't know what happened. People call things hills here that are barely slopes. I wouldn't even notice them as an upgrade. So I just thought that whole thing was interesting, and that's how we came up with it. Just in having a conversation with this woman about sense of place and how one can feel displaced.
So that was
in so many ways.
It was your idea because of this conversation.
Yeah.
And then did you bring it to the committee, and is it a committee decision or?
Yes. Marion and I are at the helm, but I do very little without talking to everybody else about it.
How large is your staff in Philadelphia, or the group that meets as an editorial board?
Usually about 12.
And the readers that you have in New York and Princeton, are they ever imported for these in these face-to-face board meetings?
If somebody's in Philly when we're having a meeting, we're pretty rigid about our meeting schedules too, so that everybody can build their lives around it. So we have 2 meetings a month, and so do they, and ours are always second Tuesday and fourth Thursday, and theirs are always every other Tuesday. And anyway, I've gone to theirs and they've gone to ours and stuff, just if we happen to be in New York and Philly that night, not ever.
Oh, so they have separate meetings in.
Yes.
So they are allowed to decide on a certain number of the pieces that are submitted?
As many as they're reading, yeah. They're reading and deciding just as we are reading and deciding.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no limit on the number. I'm just trying to get a handle on your process. So you might submit through a series of meetings. There might be a certain number of submissions, and you might take 30, but you will just sort of piece them out as it's time to publish them?
Yeah,
or?
we just keep chunking them in Google Doc folders and until we have enough to make an issue. Yeah, there isn't like Philly gets half and New York gets half or any percent split. It's just until we fill issues, we accept. And that's it.
I'm not sure whether this is an okay question for right here, but I wanted to ask you about the smart set. Is that an okay?
Well, sure. I can answer some. I might be able to answer your question. I hope so.
Well, I guess the smart set appeared just a short number of years ago. I'm not sure how long it's been around, but I sort of discovered it online, and I've followed it, and it seems to be getting more and more interesting and better over the last couple of years. And I wanted to ask, it's kind of the same submission question about the smart set, because I find that the categories of writing in it are really interesting. The journeys.
Can you
travel.
explain what the smart
What
set
the smart set is? Okay, so it's. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is what I
Okay.
understand. That it's a resurrected old Drexel literary magazine, which is why it has this kind of peculiar name.
Okay, stop there.
Am I
you can
wrong?
keep going, but yeah,
Uh-huh.
you just got one little fact wrong.
Okay.
It is now run out of Drexel, but it is a resurrected magazine, but it was not Drexel's
see.
in the 30s.
So
What-
who
It was like Life
sure.
or something. It was a
I see.
national. It was somebody owned it, like Condé Nast or something. It was a magazine.
I see.
Eugene O'Neill was very involved in it, and it wasn't university affiliated with any university.
I see. Okay. it's now online through Drexel University, and Jessica Crispin from Bookslut is writing a regular column for it, and it has some really interesting travel writing and first-person writing, and I wanted to ask you about submissions for that and how those are handled.
Okay. I don't run that, but I'm friends with Jason Wilson. Jason Wilson works in the Honors College at Drexel and runs a Smart Set out of Drexel. They do accept open submissions, but they do not publish a lot of open submissions. They have mostly columnists and regular writers that Jason solicits. They don't use students in the manner that PBQ does. They've been around about 3 years. You can submit to them, but they're not publishing a lot of unsolicited manuscripts. That is what I know.
Okay, thanks.
Well, oh, go ahead.
I had a question about the funding, where that mostly comes from. Is it pretty university supported? Do you have to get a lot of grants? Also, as sort of a sub-question, do you run a contest, and do you find, is that a pretty worthwhile source of funding for the magazine?
Yeah. Before we were university affiliated, we ran contests, and we did see them as a good source of funding. I never had to do what you're trying to do in get people to trust a new magazine with their $10 submission fee. And to be perfectly honest, when I talk with groups, I do like how to be published conferences and stuff a lot. I tell people not to send money to enter contests unless it's a very prestigious author who's the judge and or they know the magazine. So if you're a new magazine, I would say that you need a judge of Philip Levine's character, to make it be worth your time. Because there's just so many contests. I mean, do you ever look at the back of Poets and Writers or AWP or, that's how everyone is funding themselves. So how do you make people send you their $10? I don't know. Like I said, I never had to do that. They were lucrative. We did well. We had Yusef Kounyaka as a judge. We had Molly Peacock as a judge. We had Charles Baxter, Rick Bartholomew. We had huge names, and we were already 25 years old. So, but I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying use any contact you can to have a prestigious judge since your magazine is new. That would be my advice there. Yeah. We get a lot of funding from the university, but, I was saying we are an independent. That means we also have to scramble for some of our own funds. So we get funding from Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance, NEA, PCA, who's, we knock on lots of doors and try to
Do you have a grant writer, or are you, as the editor, scrambling? You're doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a grant writer? Yes, she's really nice. Would you like to meet her?
Well, I have a question for Lindsay. Not to put you on the spot, but so you do the desktop publishing. So are you the only person who's doing this? I guess you're doing graphic design, and you're processing all the material and to put it into both. I'm putting words in your mouth, into the print issue and also the online issue. Is that just you, or are you a staff of one, or do you have people working with you, or how does that work?
Well, I'm the only desktop publishing assistant, I guess. So I make like flyers and stuff for our events and do stuff like on the website if there's any changes, I guess. But we also have Michael, who sort of does some of that. So I guess we both kind of do
Is
everything.
he a staff person, or is he also a co-opper?
Well, that Michael should not be working with us. Michael's really random. I have I have the great benefit of having too many co-ops this term because he had worked with me a couple times, and then he got his graduate degree, and then he needed another co-op. So he's actually working for me as an unpaid co-op to get his graduate degree. So I shouldn't have as much technological help as I have or desktop help as I have. And one thing too, so you don't think I just have this embarrassment of riches, PBQ isn't all that these people do. The Drexel Publishing Group is what we do too. And one of the things, and one of the venues in it is a fully online magazine. So a lot of what Lindsay is doing too is also managing this other site. So she's managing 2 sites. We've been really pushing social media.
A second magazine in addition to PBQ?
Yeah,
Yes, okay.
that's completely not PBQ.
What is it
in
called?
any way? It's called Drexel Publishing Online.
And what is the
You're really
what is the
creative.
content of that?
It's all student written, and
Is it fiction or is it just?
Oh no, not at all. It's the journalism arm. When I'm talking about Drexel Publishing Group as a whole, we have an academic arm. It's called the 33rd. It's an anthology that exists only in print, and it's a very insular object. It's all written through student contests and faculty members, and then it's used as the freshman reader. So we make that object, which is an academic. We are the only university in the country to do something like this. It's pretty cool. That's our academic arm. The Drexel Publishing Online is our journalism arm,
Okay.
and PBQ is our literary arm. PBQ is the only thing that's really external. We don't publish students. We don't publish faculty. I mean, we would, but it actually has never happened.
Really?
Yeah.
So where does this come from? Who is designing it?
Drexel, this fabulous guy, Bill Reese, in the graphic design department,
Okay.
with a student. So I love that too. That was important.
So
to
you're
me.
reaching outside of your PBQ staff for the
Right.
graphic design and for the, publication. So when you say
Right.
desktop publishing, you're doing more
The online.
event-related stuff. And who is
Well,
your,
and the online publishing.
so are you the webmaster or who designed the website? I'm just, just to get to the nuts and bolts of how this is done.
It's a template that Lindsay has inherited. Yeah.
And then I guess you would kind of tell me what you wanted to do, and then
Right. We still make aesthetic choices even when we give the stuff to Bill.
Right.
I mean, but printing is pretty easy now, really. We have a rolling doc that is each issue. And do you guys know about blue lines? You know that term? So what we do too with each issue as it goes online, a week before we make it live, we send out an email to all of the authors and say, go look at your work. And then they do, and they get back to us if things are wrong. And that's how we know that it'll be okay for the print. So we give our book designer, each issue as its own object in a rolling Word doc. And then they use, if somebody said it, I would know it. Not Quark. They use some software that just bangs it into pages,
But someone has made decisions about justification, about font, about.
We have with the designer, right?
Okay.
His decisions, right? Like our very first one was awful. The print one, the text ran way too far into the gutter,
Right.
And you do have to make all of those decisions about whether or not you want running heads, and is it title then author or author then title, and all of those things. We did make those decisions, but with his guidance too.
In our class, our students have noted the differences in just these kinds of decisions in literary magazines, and I think there was a consensus that this is a very professional looking book.
Thank you.
And so I was just wondering where these decisions were coming from.
Right, it's a combo, but our designer's guidance was important. For sure. And we find the cover art. We always use one issue. One of our online covers or splash pages become the print cover.
And is that, again, a committee decision?
Absolutely. There's nothing we do that isn't.
That is
I sent them pictures today. What should I wear?
Oh, really? Is that true?
It's true.
It's true. Okay. Do we have another?
Have there been any differences in the magazine since it partnered with Drexel? Any influence? How has it changed?
Can I tell you the truth? It's better. Drexel's been more generous with me than Rutgers was. And I guess, that's where this whole thing wraps back around. At one point at Rutgers, I had done my grad work there, like I told you. And I just kind of woke up one morning and said, oh my God, I'm going to be, Kathy for the rest of my life here. I've got to get out of this place. Which I don't know if you've heard that story before. That happens to people a lot when you stay where you went to graduate school. And then I remembered that Drexel had housed Boulevard, and that Boulevard was gone. And I thought, hey, wonder if Drexel would like to own a magazine. And it was always tricky. I just said, oh, they don't own us. It was always tricky running PBQ in New Jersey, too, because nationally it's thought of as a Philly magazine. And, of course, the name is attached to the Art Center, and I had to answer a lot of questions for that all the time. All of our legal stuff is Philly, too, the incorporation and everything. So here I am applying for a Pennsylvania Council on the Arts grant and saying, reply to Camden. So it just didn't make any sense. So I wanted to come over, and it was just the right time at Drexel. Drexel's dean in the College of Arts and Sciences is just wonderfully maniacal in trying to grow that college, and she's done a fabulous job, and they're happy to have us. So because they're happy to have us, they give us a lot of support and have made my life really good there. So I do think it makes the magazine.
Do you still have any relationship with the Painted Bride Art Center?
No, not really. Every now and then I think that we should again. There were many years before we were affiliated with any university, for many years, even with my time with it, that's where the mail still came, even with no relationship with them. We have 2 events a month. We do a reading series, and we do an interactive writing competition that you should all come to. It's Thursday. I knew I'd get a chance to do this. The 4th Thursday of every month at the Pen and Pencil, we do an interactive writing competition called Slam Bam Thank You Ma'am, where we say, and it's true, it really is, it's like, whose line is it anyway, crossed with Henry Rollins, and this is again, I do think this is like an excellent example of our editorial. It's kind of like our editorial thing too, because the audience does everything. We just have the party. We give you pen and paper, and then the audience throws out words, and the host picks which words, and then everybody writes. And then whoever wants to out of the audience reads, and then the audience picks the winner by hooting and hollering. So it's all audience-centric.
What's the prize?
We have a booty bag, different things, PBQs, T-shirts, bumper stickers, all kinds of random things. Tickets to first-person art story slams. If Drexel's, like, we had Salman Rushdie tickets last year. If we're doing something cool.
Where is this located again?
It's 1522 Latimer. It's down a dark alley that you'll think I should not be walking here. What? It is a private club, but they do public events. You have to, ask the board and da-da-da-da-da. But, we've been doing it 2 years. This November will be 2 years.
But hypothetically, everyone here could go.
Oh, absolutely.
They don't have to ask the board.
The Pen and Pencil, you should check them out. They do a lot of events that the world is invited to. You have to be a member when there isn't an event happening and at certain hours and stuff. But they do a lot of stuff. Yeah, it's the oldest journalism club in the city. But then anyway, we also do a more traditional reading, and we do tend to have them in bars. And I don't know if that's some old school, hang on from when it was being run out of people's kitchens and basements. And so we had to have them in bars. We didn't have a home. But now, like, our crew needs to have a drink while they listen to their poetry or something.
And where is that home?
Well, so they're at the Perch Pub now. This is I've been a little bit like Goldilocks, running around the city trying to find venues, because sometimes this place is too small and this place is too big, and so we had our first one at Perch Pub in October, and it was wonderful, and so we're gonna stay there for a while and see how that goes. It's on 13th and the Avenue of the Arts, 13th and Broad. So it's a lovely location, and it's a beautiful space.
It's upstairs, and you can see Broad Street from the windows.
Yeah, it's a really cool location. So yeah, it's kind of the opposite. Have you been in the P&P?
No.
The P&P is like somebody's basement in 1973. It's very dark and windowless, and and old school. Low ceilings. Perch Pub is gorgeous and all windows and open to the Avenue of the Arts. It's a whole different thing.
Can you tell us about your literary death match?
Oh, yes, I would love to. There's an organization called Literary Deathmatch, and they've been only around for 3 years, and this guy, Todd Zuniga, has gone completely nuts with this, and he has these events literally all over the world. All over the world. LiteraryDeathmatch.com. Look at it, or org, probably. I think it's an org. LiteraryDeathmatch.org. So it goes all over the world. We already did one in May. We're doing one again in November. And this is a real lovely event because we invite 4 organizations to each bring an author to represent that organization. And 3 judges who also, are local luminaries kind of folks. And the readers read and the judges judge, and it's all lighthearted and a great time. And this one is at the World Cafe on November 7th, and we're having a representative from the Kelly Writers House.
That's going to be Jamie Lee, I think. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. From Murphy Writing Seminars. I don't know if anybody knows Peter Murphy has been around for years and years, and he runs these writing seminars. Sean Toner from there, somebody from Philadelphia Stories, Courtney Bambrick, and who am I missing? Apiary.
Michael O'Hara.
Michael O'Hara from Apiary. And so the last one was a blast, and I expect this one to be as well. It's really
It
fun.
sounds frightening, but yeah.
Well, I love the name Literary Deathmatch is pretty funny, and the host Todd is very charismatic and fun, and it'll be a good time.
Nobody actually dies.
No one dies. You might get shot with a rubber dart.
Okay.
That's as bad as it gets. But since I'm doing the plug-in, I might as well say, of course, you can find us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. And if you just go to the website, which is super easy, pbq.drexel.edu, if you don't do either of those social media things, you can just click on events and sign up for our listserv. We promise to send you no more than 4 emails a month, sometimes even less. So just promote those 2 events every month. Do I have another minute?
Yes.
So, because the slam has been so much fun, we also have another thing going called the Sidecar, which is a game we play on Facebook, which is very similar to what I just said about the slam. At every Slam Bam Thank You Ma'am, the audience picks words or a theme or something that become the next month's sidecar. So on PBQ, we have an event called, on our Painted Bread Quarterly Facebook page, we have an event called the Sidecar. And these 3 words are the goofiest we ever did. They are meet, as in the verb, meet, as in the noun, and neat. And you have to work those into a poem or a story. And then you post them on our Facebook page, and then people like them or don't like them. So it's, again, the public is doing all of it. They're the participants and they're the judges. We're not doing any of it. But when you win at the end of the month, we put you on our actual real page on a sidebar. Get it?
So I have a question about that. I've seen a lot over the past 3 or 4 years of institutions that are trying to sort of get more attention in social media. And what they're doing is they're creating kind of quasi-contest competitions. And I've seen it in classical music, I've seen it in serious film, and I'm seeing things like this. So they're basically asking for likes or for votes, either Facebook or YouTube or some other thing, and it's bringing it out to the general public, which is sort of this unfiltered mass. And then there's an opportunity for gaming it if you're really into that by removing the cookies from your browser. You can really
Sure,
whatever.
yeah.
So I'm just wondering how is that working out for you? Do you feel that the votes or the winners of this competition are kind of people that would have won in a how is that just curious.
I was afraid for the same reasons you're talking about, and of course a lot of poets are PBQ friends. So, Mark Doty, Molly Peacock, like lots of
Are
lots of
they
famous poets.
entering the competition?
But they don't play,
Yeah.
and some people had said, what if these bigger names play? They're not playing. We just made sure to say in our rules, be nice, and we will look at IP addresses if we have to, and if this doesn't work, PBQ reserves the right to stop playing, and we haven't had that kind of trouble. This round with Meet was the first time we had a complete AH say anything. Like somebody went on and said something that was beyond sophomoric.
I guess there's
Like sixth grade,
it's somewhat,
and we took it off
because
the
it's
page.
on, it's on Facebook. There's some accountability, I guess. Or
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we would be, since it's on Facebook, it would be different than being on Drexel server. But I didn't want that staying on there. I mean, by now that I believe in democracy and everybody having a voice and all those lovely things, but not sixth grade
right.
lavatory behavior.
So you're watching out for the writers.
Oh, sure. We're on there all the time.
I also had a question, which I think might be circulating in other people's mind, is it seems nowadays when you have a literary magazine that isn't completely funded by some other organization, that a certain amount of time, and this is probably true in all the arts, has to be spent doing events, just sort of drumming up, stirring things up, getting the buzz going, in addition to all the grants that you're writing and everything else. And I can see that, you have 2 events a month, that takes a lot of work, and then you've got this other stuff going on with the sidecar and everything, and that's all that adds hours and hours to what you're doing every month. And I'm wondering, can you just comment? Because it seems to me that everyone who has a publication is really spending a lot of extra time, because they must, on things that are really outside of, they're more sort of marketing, social media, those other, hosting events and doing things that are very time consuming and, just take time away from what might have been editorial time. Is that harder? Is it different? How is that different from it was, when you first started out in publishing?
Well, I have a twofold answer to that. Before I was housed at a university, it was really hard. And we thought a lot, what are we doing? And we're spending definitely 70% of our time chasing cash and very little reading. And, I remember periods of being very resentful at my staff because they didn't do any of the admin. And they were just reading the work and talking about poetry. And I was like, really? You get to talk about poetry?
Luxury.
Yeah, it's really, really hard. And, no offense against you, but I always think another new magazine. There needs to be another magazine, and again, no offense, seriously, I'm very old. Always take that into account.
She's not
everything
old.
I say. But I always think what audience is not being served already? Do we need another outlet? Don't So I don't know. I mean, I think I have nothing optimistic to say, and I'm a very optimistic person. I think things are very bad in the literary magazine world, in all of those ways. Even online, even if you're deciding to not do print so that it's free, your time is still a cost, and there are so many publications. To just vie with all that competition, that's another reason the social media thing, and the events. We do the events because they're fun. And at this point, I kind of do the events because I feel like we have to. That's what PBQ does. It's part of who we are. But I do often question that even now, even with the better position, I think, why aren't I just reading the poetry? Why am I still planning these parties and stuff? But the catch-22 is the grant makers want that.
Right.
They want to see that you're doing community stuff and promotion stuff, and
does it not enlarge your sort of sense of your presence in the literary community to do that?
Yeah. You have to be, even if you're not chasing dollars. I'm not chasing dollars as hard as I used to. I still have to stay in the forefront of people's minds all the time, or we won't be in their minds. There's so many people vying for attention, that, I think that's why we've done the social media work that we've done. It's not really because we need a bigger audience, but a bigger audience is always great. It's not a need, but you got to be in it. You have to be in it.
Do we have any other questions? Got one more? What happened to my?
Well, on that note, do you think, like the banks, the literary magazines should start eating each other up and consolidating?
I think that's a pretty good idea. I mean, has anybody here ever been to AWP, Associated Writing Programs Conference? Well, there are a lot of literary magazines, and I don't know what to say on that other than
Are there more magazines than readers?
I think there's a magazine for every reader, for sure. There's so many magazines. And this is being recorded. I don't know if I should say this phrase, but what the hell. There are a lot of circle jerk magazines, a lot of circle jerk magazines, and I have a personal issue with that.
Could you define that? I'm just not smart enough.
I'll define it in the way I'm using it right now, which is, Frankie says, I'm going to make a magazine. And he invites his 10 friends to send their work to him. And he publishes his 10 friends. And then one of those people, Lindsay, goes, you know what, I'm going to make one too. And because you published me, I'll publish you. Tons of those. You can even sometimes look at mastheads and author lists and cross-reference. Tons of that is going on. So, yeah.
That's a literary Ponzi scheme.
So, I don't know. I mean, I am old and I've never not been in academia. So maybe I am just, bourgeois, even though I'm blue-collar Pittsburgh. I don't know. I wonder when that stops, and what about the meaning of publication? If I talked with a young woman who is a very excellent writer and is getting published places, and she said she would rather get published tomorrow by a magazine she's never heard of than the Paris Review in 6 months. And it was hard to not just go, well, guess what? That's just stupid. That's just stupid. So that's what I mean about me being an academic. Like, I don't even want to be published in Joe Blow's magazine tomorrow. I don't want to be in there ever. But there are people who are very happy to just run around.
Is it because of instant gratification or wanting to accumulate a large resume very quickly? Is that what she meant?
I guess.
Or does she just hate
like
the Paris
your
Review?
question about these cover letters. Sometimes these cover letters come in and people have 40 names on the list, and that's why I don't read cover letters, because they're so meaningless sometimes. So you have 40 friends, I guess. That's why you're published in 40 places. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. That's what's changed. Is I don't know. Like I said, for me, there should still be a value to the publication, and I ask for some kind of vetting other than I know you.
So you never go out and solicit something from say you were to be in a meeting or a conference or a dinner party and you found yourself next to David Sedaris.
Wow, that'd be great. Can you give me that invitation?
Would you just?
Oh no, I solicit all the time, but I solicit with the caveat of I'm
It's
not
going
the
through
only
the board.
judge. Yeah, I'd love to see something. It's an editorial. It's a democratic policy. I won't be the only vote, but I would love to see your work. I solicit stuff at readings. I'll hear people I've never heard and walk up to them afterwards and say, that was dynamite. Can send it to us? I can't guarantee you, but please send it. So that's how I do it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm curious, do you ever get complaints from your readers since you have thematic issues? And how do you handle those complaints if you do
Complaints
receive
about
them?
what?
Your thematic issues. Do you
About
ever
the
receive?
themes?
Yeah, about
Yeah.
the themes. Yeah.
I guess not, because I'm not sure what you mean. What would they complain about?
Like, do they complain about the stories themselves or the theme that was chosen?
Too much food.
No,
No.
I've never seen anything.
No,
No. No. The only complaint we get is, why are you taking so long with my work? But, then we can come back at them with so much power about how wonderful we are, and we give it so much care. We hand carry it to one another and, cherish their work. So,
Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, it's about 1:15, so I think what we're gonna do is like break up. I think that, I don't know if there's any more pizza left, but if there is, you're welcome to have some more. Hang around and talk with us a little bit if you'd like to. And I know some people have to get back to work or class, so we'll just finish up informally and then
Okay.
get off to class.
all right.
Okay, great.
Boom.